There's a reason why some people manifest what they want so effortlessly while others stay stuck in a loop of hoping, trying, and waiting. It all comes down to one thing: assumption. Neville Goddard didn't just talk about positive thinking, he revealed something far more powerful. The state of assumption is the key that determines whether your desires remain a fantasy or become an undeniable reality. Most people misunderstand assumption. They think of it as a mere thought, an affirmation, or a visualization technique. But assumption is not something you do, it's something you are. It's the difference between "I hope it happens" and "it is happening." And the more natural your assumption feels, the faster your reality molds itself to match it. This is where most get stuck. They try to assume but feel like they're lying to themselves. They repeat affirmations, visualize, or script, yet deep down, they're still waiting for proof. But here's the truth: when you fully assume something, you don't need proof. You don't wait for it to happen because, in your world, it already has. And when that level of certainty clicks, reality bends to reflect it. Neville Goddard said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption." But what does that actually mean? It means you stop identifying with the version of you that lacks and instead move into the version of you that has. This shift isn't about forcing belief, it's about settling into it naturally, like stepping into a new identity. Imagine someone who has been poor their entire life suddenly inheriting a fortune. At first, they might still feel like their old self, worried about money, hesitant to spend. But eventually, without effort, they adjust. They begin to feel wealthy, and their actions follow. This is exactly how assumption works. It starts as an idea but becomes second nature when you stop contradicting it with doubt. This is why effortless belief speeds up manifestation. The less resistance you have, the quicker reality conforms. Most people slow things down because they try to force themselves to believe while simultaneously looking for evidence. The moment you stop questioning whether it's working is the moment it works. Many struggle with this because they feel as if they must convince themselves of something they don't yet see. They check their current circumstances, searching for validation, but this only reinforces the state they're trying to leave behind. If you truly had what you desired, you wouldn't be constantly looking for proof, it would simply be a fact of your existence. When you assume correctly, the need for confirmation disappears because, internally, you already know it's done. Think of a time when you fully expected something to happen. Maybe you ordered food online and never once doubted it would arrive. You didn't sit around questioning whether the restaurant received your order or whether the delivery person would forget your address. You placed the order, assumed it was on its way, and carried on with your day. That's the kind of certainty assumption requires. You don't obsess over whether it's working because you trust the process. Doubt creeps in only when you see yourself as separate from your desire. The key is to embody the feeling of already having it. Not from a place of desperation, but from a place of knowing. This doesn't mean pretending or faking it. It means aligning with the inner state that matches your wish fulfilled. It means normalizing your desire to the point that it feels as real as your current identity. Think of it like a habit. When you first start a new routine, it may feel unnatural. But over time, as you repeat it, it becomes second nature. You no longer think about it, you just do it. The same principle applies to assumption. At first, it might feel unfamiliar to think from the perspective of already having what you want. But the more you settle into that state, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, your outer world shifts to match, not because you forced it, but because you allowed yourself to become the person who already has it. When you truly assume, you don't need external proof to validate your belief. Your conviction alone is enough to bring it into reality. The biggest mistake people make with assumption is treating it like a temporary technique. They say, "I'll assume I have it so it comes," but underneath, they still feel like they don't. This is why results remain inconsistent. Assumption is not about pretending, it's about being. If you assume wealth while still feeling broke, your assumption hasn't truly sunk in. If you assume love while still feeling unwanted, the shift hasn't been made. This is where most people unconsciously sabotage themselves. They assume, but only for a moment. Then, when reality doesn't instantly change, they revert back to doubt. They check for signs, seek reassurance, and question if they're doing it right. But the very act of questioning proves they haven't fully assumed yet. You'll know you've mastered assumption when you no longer need signs to confirm it. You'll simply know it's done, and that knowing alone will be enough. And ironically, that's when reality shifts the fastest. The problem is that most people approach assumption as a strategy rather than a transformation. They use it as a means to an end, rather than embodying it as a state of being. This creates resistance because they remain aware of what they don't have. They continue to oscillate between belief and doubt, between assuming and checking. They wake up feeling certain but end the day questioning whether it's working. This constant back and forth sends mixed signals to their subconscious, keeping them stuck in the same reality. True assumption requires unwavering stability. It means deciding once and for all that what you desire is already yours, without needing proof. When you assume correctly, it no longer feels like a waiting game, it feels like a fact. You aren't anxiously hoping for it to appear, you're living as if it's already present. This internal shift is what brings external results, not the other way around. Imagine someone who has just been hired for their dream job. The moment they receive the confirmation email, their entire perception changes. Even before their first day, they start thinking and acting like someone in that position. They no longer worry about job applications or interviews because they already have the role. Their confidence increases, their outlook shifts, and they naturally align with their new identity. This is how assumption works. The decision comes first, and everything else follows. Most people, however, wait for reality to convince them. They want to see movement before they believe. But belief must precede evidence, not the other way around. If you require proof to maintain your assumption, you're not actually assuming, you're reacting. And as long as you react to the absence of your desire, you continue reinforcing its absence. The secret is to assume so completely that doubt has no room to exist. To be so sure that external validation becomes irrelevant. Once you reach that level of certainty, reality has no choice but to conform. What you assume with full conviction must harden into fact. So how do you assume naturally, without force or struggle? The answer is simple. Stop making assumption a task and start making it an identity. Instead of trying to assume, let yourself ease into the reality where your desire is already fulfilled. Think about something in your life that you don't doubt. Maybe it's your name, your ability to walk, or the fact that the sun will rise tomorrow. You don't need to affirm these things, they're just naturally assumed. This is how your desire should feel. When you assume effortlessly, your state remains stable. You're no longer shifting between faith and doubt, you simply are. The fastest way to get there. Immerse yourself in the feeling of already having what you want, not as a fleeting moment but as your default state. And if your mind tries to pull you back into questioning, remind yourself, assumption is not about seeking, it's about knowing. This is why forcing belief never works. The moment you try to force something, you're admitting you don't fully believe it yet. You don't force yourself to believe in gravity, or that the sky is blue, you simply accept it because you've internalized it. The same needs to happen with your assumption. Instead of constantly working to believe, allow yourself to settle into knowing. Stop approaching assumption like a technique that needs effort and start treating it as a truth that just is. One of the best ways to do this is to observe your current natural assumptions. Look at the areas in your life where things come easily to you. Maybe you always get good service at restaurants, or people naturally treat you with respect. These experiences are a result of an assumption you hold about yourself and the world. You're not forcing these outcomes, they just happen. That's the level of certainty you need with your desires. To reinforce this, practice embodying the state of your wish fulfilled throughout your day. If you're manifesting wealth, don't just think about being rich in quiet moments of meditation. Walk, talk, and carry yourself as someone who is already financially abundant. If you're manifesting love, don't spend your days wondering when it will happen. Live as though love is already a part of your life. This doesn't mean faking or pretending. It means making your assumption so natural that it becomes second nature. When a person is in love, they don't need constant reminders, they just feel it. When someone is wealthy, they don't need proof, they just know. That's the energy you must cultivate. The more natural your assumption feels, the faster it manifests, because there's no resistance blocking it. And whenever doubt creeps in, don't fight it. Simply return to your assumption. Let it become your foundation, the place you always come back to. Over time, this state of being will feel more real than any temporary doubts, and when that happens, your reality will have no choice but to reflect it. The irony of assumption is that the less effort you put into making it happen, the faster it happens. Most people delay manifestation because they're too focused on doing rather than being. They script, visualize, and repeat affirmations, but beneath it all, they're still checking if it's working. They haven't surrendered to the knowing. Neville taught that faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. This means you persist in your assumption, not through effort, but through conviction. You don't wake up every morning questioning if gravity will work, it just does. In the same way, your assumption should feel so real that the idea of not having it becomes laughable. This is where people misunderstand letting go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up on your desire, it means releasing the need to force it. You still assume it's yours, but without desperation. The moment you relax into your assumption, your manifestation gains momentum. The reason this works is simple. When you're truly convinced that something is already yours, you stop obsessing over it. Think about something you own, a phone, a bed, or even the ability to breathe. You don't wake up each morning wondering if you still have these things. You just know. That's the feeling you need to cultivate with assumption. The more you treat your desire as something that already belongs to you, the more effortlessly it materializes. But most people make the mistake of checking for proof. They wake up feeling confident, but by the afternoon, they're scanning their reality for signs. The moment they don't see movement, doubt creeps in. And in that doubt, they unknowingly reaffirm the absence of their desire. They go back to hoping, trying, and waiting instead of simply being. This is why letting go of the need to control the process is so powerful. When you no longer need to see evidence, the evidence naturally appears. Letting go also removes resistance. The more desperately you want something, the more you reinforce the idea that you don't have it. Desire is only powerful when it's backed by certainty, not longing. Think of how effortlessly things flow into your life when you're least attached to them. The relationships that happen when you're not searching. The job offers that come when you're content where you are. The money that shows up when you're not stressing about it. This is the paradox of assumption. The moment you stop grasping for it, it flows to you effortlessly. This doesn't mean you should suppress your desires or pretend you don't care. It means you should step into the state of already having them. When you fully embody that state, doubt disappears, and so does the need for constant reassurance. You trust in the unseen reality because you've already claimed it as yours. And once that trust is unshakable, manifestation isn't something you chase, it's something that naturally unfolds. One thing that confuses people is the time delay between assumption and reality. But here's what you need to understand. Time is not an obstacle, it's just a bridge. The moment you assume something, reality begins rearranging itself. You may not see it instantly, but it's happening behind the scenes. Neville explained that once an assumption is made, events unfold to bring it to fruition. But many people sabotage their manifestation by reacting to what appears to be unchanged. They assume for a moment, then look around and say, but nothing's happening. That reaction alone pulls them back into their old state. Your job is to persist, not with effort, but with certainty. When you assume and truly let go of needing external validation, your bridge of events unfolds naturally. And often, your manifestation comes in ways you never expected. When you assume effortlessly, your mind stops resisting. You're no longer fighting doubts or trying to make yourself believe, you just are. This is what makes manifestation instantaneous. You no longer push reality into submission, you let it align with you naturally. This is why those who effortlessly assume seem to manifest out of nowhere. They're not waiting, trying, or forcing, they're simply being. They don't need proof because, in their reality, it's already done. And because they don't doubt it, reality has no choice but to reflect it. If you've struggled with manifestation, this is the shift you need to make. Stop treating assumption like a task. Stop trying to believe. Instead, step into the version of you that already has it. Let the knowing settle, and the rest will take care of itself. Now, if you're wondering how to shift into this state of absolute knowing without effort, that's exactly what we explored in the last video. It reveals the overlooked Neville Goddard principle that ends the cycle of waiting and makes manifestation instant. If you haven't watched it yet, it will completely change the way you see reality. Watch it now, and everything will click. Just click on the first video that appears on the end screen to watch it.